Okay, so Sally Gunnell, thank you so much for doing this. It's a real privilege and brilliant to meet you. You've had such a lustrous career, and how thinking about back to when you first started, did you ever thought you'd be in that position to win the world and European and Olympic and Commonwealth Games titles?
No, not at all. I mean, I just loved what I did. And I loved the training part of it. I loved the camaraderie. And I suppose I just loved the challenge of seeing how good you could get. And you go from it all just being great. It gets serious at some point, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, I could actually do this thing that you've been around, you're surrounded, you've watched and you dreamt about. And then it's sort of like, okay, I could do this thing. And I think all the way along I always put myself down. I was always, could I really do it? And was I good enough? And, always looked at everybody else. So there was a lot of lessons that I had to learn almost to allow me to be able to be that person to stand on that line on that day. It wasn't just a natural thing that happened. It was a process I had to almost go through.
Fantastic. I mean, thinking back to when you first started, I mean, who inspired you to be who you are, and how, who pushed you into that kind of direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think I found out I was good at sport from a very young age. The running side of it came really naturally. I remember being miles ahead at sports day at 5 years old. It was that sort of thing. And then I just wanted to join a club. I had great teachers at my primary school that sort of said, you've got talent, and and I love gymnastics as well, actually. So that was quite interesting. So I sort of didn't know whether to go to the gymnastics club or the athletics club. And it was just literally a friend was going to the athletics club, and I just thought, well, I'll go with her. And it was literally probably about 15 minutes away. So trying to fit that in with my parents and the farm life was sort of, quite easier. And I think back now and I think, gosh, I would never have made a gymnast. How our paths sort of go, really. And then I got spotted at 14 by my coach, who was my coach throughout my life. And he coached international athletes and wanted me to go up to Crystal Palace, which was about an hour away, sort of 3 times a week, to be part of that group. And then I was surrounded by, top athletes like Daley Thompson and, loads of top guys. And I was just very fortunate to, that was the norm from me, to watch them and to learn from them and be inspired by, I always been inspired by the 1980 Olympics and Daley and Seb and Ovett, people like that really inspired me at that very early age as well.
Wow. I mean, thinking about the training, how did you keep yourself motivated on a daily basis? I mean,
what then?
Yeah.
I think it was knowing that you had to put the work in. You're only ever as good as your last race. And you're only ever going to cheat yourself if you don't train hard. Don't get me wrong. There was days when it was pouring with rain and I'd be like, no, I'm not training today. I don't want to. But by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'd start thinking about, my competitors who are probably out there training and, and that guilt would sort of come along and I'd sort of like go, no, I've got to do it. I couldn't live with myself almost, so I had to get out there and do it. There was, you had up and down days, but to me, it was always about putting it in the bank, having that training. It wasn't always about the quality of it or anything. It was just about doing that. It was consistency and putting it in the bank almost. And that was the important piece.
Brilliant. I mean, you finished your career. You said it was a time of reflection, and where to go next. And you became a TV pundit, and you wrote numerous books. Thinking about that and how you've moved forward, what motivates you now, and how do you inspire others?
I think the motivation comes now from we're 28 years since I won that gold medal, which is still crazy, but people still remember it and people still want to listen to you. And I guess the motivation comes from, I was always wanting to be the best version I could, and it's still the same now. And that's what everybody's striving to be. and you realize that you become quite an influential person in people's lives, and that you can make them healthier and happier and all those sort of things. So I think the talk side of it has really developed, from not just becoming a motivational speaker now to, you know, doing a lot on well-being. I'm doing a lot of talks on resilience and, you know, just helping people in all sorts of areas within the corporate world and the people's, you know, individuals as well. And I just, I just really enjoy it, and I get very rewarded, and feel very privileged to be in that position to still be able to do this after 28 years.
I mean, I've got some questions from a few of our participants in a few schools. One of the questions is, how important in mental health and well-being at school and work? You know, why is it so important though?
Oh, it's so important. You know, I wouldn't, you know, I always say on that day in Barcelona, probably there was other people in that race that were faster, they were stronger than me. I don't think technically they were better, but I'd mentally prepared myself. I'd gone out to get help and support to get myself in what was going to put me into the right mental state to be able to win that. And I think I learned that, you know, as much as 70% of it on that day is the mental strength that you have. And I think that's the biggest thing I take into my life now and try and pass on to people, is that, you know, we can, you know, and I did a whole piece yesterday for an organisation about kindness, and I always say it's about being kind to not just other people, but being kind to ourselves, and that comes down to that mental health piece of, we're always telling ourselves we're not good enough and we can't do this and everyone's better, which is what I used to do, to learning how you say to yourself, do you know what, you deserve this, you've trained hard, you're just as good as everybody else, and how by telling yourself, you know, it's such a powerful tool, our mind, and it's free, and, you know, and not dwelling on things, and how we can, you know, quieten that inner voice and keep it positive, and yeah, just all those sorts of things really. So and that affects us at all ages, you know, not just, you know, it took me a few years to find that, but, you know, I think so often now what I'm learning is, you know, it's a natural thing. We often put ourselves down, and I think it's, you know, and I know people go through some real struggles. We've all been through struggles, but you either listen to that voice and let it play into your life, or you try and, you know, keep positive and feed the positives and the great things that you are doing, and, you know, living in the now and appreciating all those sorts of things. And I think that's where I've got to almost, but, you know, it's taken quite a few years to do that.
Right. I mean, yeah, we talk about mental health, we talk about inclusion, and we talk about diversity. Why is inclusion and diversity so important? As you know, you talk about schools, colleges, universities, in everyday life, and especially these challenging times now.
Oh, it's enormous, isn't it? And I think it goes back to, you know, what we're learning in these challenging times is what is really key to us, and how everybody is feeling. We do have bad days. You know, I've had a few bad days. I think, oh, where are we going? And that's when it's really important not just to think of ourselves in that situation, but to think of others and what people are, and trying to help support other people. And I think it's not about judging people. I think that's, you know, that's one of the things. I think we're very quick to judge people. I think in this challenging time now, I think we should not do that. I think it's about, you know, we don't know what people are going through. And it's about listening to people, and it's about supporting them and not judging them, and, you know, being compassionate and being a good listener in, you know, whatever, you know, situation they are in and whatever their background. And I think it's now a time to find what is that kindness and how that makes people feel, and just telling people they look nice, or supporting them, and, you know, and just, you know, what can that make you feel as well? If you say something good, or you do something good for somebody else, that can make you feel good as well. And I think it's just given us a time now to actually think about those things. And now we've got off that sort of conveyor belt, which I was all, you know, I was one of them, you know, on to the next thing, whatever. I think this sort of, like, nearly 3 months now has just slowed us down, and has given us time to think about that, what kindness means to others and how we can help, and what that actually looks like.
Fantastic. I mean, talking about your career and now about athletics now, is there anybody that's actually going to hold this with the World, European, Olympic, and Commonwealth one day, like yourself?
Oh gosh, well, there's some amazing athletes. Look at Dina Asher-Smith. Already she's up there. She's got what it takes. So I'm sure there will be. I always say it's medals can't be taken away for you. Records always can, and that's fine. I want people to experience what I did, and to I want athletics to be successful. I want as many people up there to experience that and know what that feels like. So I'd love to see that, and we've got some amazing young talent coming through. Obviously a lot of plans have been changed with the Olympics, but that's part of it. That's the challenge, and it's about turning that into a positive, and people saying, well, actually maybe I would have been in better shape next year, and it's given me time to do this, and change it into that sort of positive for themselves, which is really key, and that's what makes a champion. And I think in some respects it opens up opportunities for other people now, because it is not all how it's been planned. There's other things that have come in place, and setbacks and challenges, and sometimes that opens up for somebody that probably wasn't the favourite, and will have their day, which is what the Olympics are often about. It's not often the favourite that wins, like sometimes the World or Europeans, but the Olympics, you get somebody come up. So that's what the love of the sport really. But yeah, I mean, the sport has been left in a great place, and it comes down to amazing athletes that we have and the talent that we have, and we just need to nurture that and keep pushing that through in the next few years, and giving them the support that they need, and a great team and people behind them. That's what we need to get right.
Talking about schools and athletics in schools, how do the pathways work now for supporting those potential athletes to push further on their own career? You're talking about primary schools, secondary. How does that work to support them?
Yeah, I mean, I always think, so I always say, if you've got a talent, then your best thing to do is to join a club. There's some amazing athletics clubs out there, and you can join now from 8 years old. So and I think the role of the schools is to, especially at primary school, it's a very key age. It's about introducing them to all sorts of different sports. It's about enjoying the love of sport. It's about teaching them the real basics. And often worries me that at that influential, that a lot of kids can't run around fields, or they can't catch a ball or whatever. That is such a prime age at primary school. If they haven't got those skills, then I believe that their instant turn off of sport once they get to secondary is that they will avoid it. So it's so key at that young age to just give them those real skills of strength, balance, coordination, all those things. The more rounded sports that they go to, and all different experiences they have, the better. And then once you get to secondary school, it's still exposing them to different sports, but that's the time often that people start sort of specialising a little bit more. So if you loved your football or your rugby, you might start thinking about joining a club. And that's where the pathway goes. That's then where it leads into all the different national governing bodies, and they have their pathways involved. So yes, school to me is almost the starting point, because that's where our PE teachers, and that's where they're so crucial, like mine, to do you realise what is out there, and how you do the clubs, and that sort of system really. So yeah, really key.
Going back to your career, I mean, you think about everything you've done. What is your fondest or greatest achievement that you really can pinpoint, or is there more than one?
I think obviously there's the two real highlights. One is that Olympic gold medal, which I did dream about since I was 14, and achieved that 12 years later. And it is the pinnacle. It's only every 4 years, where the Worlds are every 2 years now. And it is, the history, and everybody, it's in everybody's sports person's mind. It is the ultimate. But the World Championships was the race, which was the following year where I broke the world records, was the one that I learnt more about myself, and just, yeah, just who I am as a character, how I was able, you know, when things were going wrong, I was able to turn it around, and that mental strength and the ability. And I think it almost shocked me. You know, after I was a bit like, wow, how did I do that? You know, it shocked me to how strong and positive I was to do what I did on the day. So I probably learnt more to help me now in that race than I did the Olympics. But it's still, the Olympics is the one that you know, people still talk about, and you still get your medal out for and stuff like that.
Fantastic. I mean, obviously we're talking about motivation and inspiration, and you know, we're in these challenging times at the moment. You're thinking about the NHS, the key workers are doing a fantastic job on the front line, and everybody is staying at home, and now we're gradually coming out with less restrictions. What would your message be to everybody still at home, shielding or going out and staying safe, and to the NHS workers, the key workers? What would you say to them to support motivation and inspiration?
Oh gosh, I've got some really close friends that are working in the hospitals, and I can see what they've been going through and how hard it is. And I think it's really helped that we have been really good, everybody, and I think we need to carry on just to help to support them. And I think, you know, they do appreciate, you know, the clapping on the Thursday night and then the amazing support. I think the thing is, I really hope that, you know, some of the experience they've had to go through and what they've seen, and I really hope that they get the support that they need afterwards. And I think that's the scary thing now, isn't it? It's just what happens leading forward, and you know, we've still got to make sure that we stick to what we're doing to help them, but I just hope that they get the support they need afterwards, because some of the experience they've seen and had to deal with, it is quite traumatic, and it will affect them for years to come. And I really hope they get that support, but they know that that we give them support, and we hope, you know, the government will, and there will be different things in place to be able to do that as well. But yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing to see, you know, we've harped on, haven't we, for years about how wonderful our NHS is, but we often wonder if people questioned it so many times, and now we've seen firsthand, haven't we, and everybody's got behind it. And you know, it's great to see so much money being raised, which is so needed, and all those sorts as well. And you know, I just hope that still carries on. That's what I want really. I don't want us to go back to what we were like. I want this to be able to be real change in you know, in this country moving forward, just to keep supporting them, because it is being, you know, it's a lifeline for sure.
And finally, my final question is, if you could think of a quote, what would, to support motivation and inspiration, what would that quote be and why?
Oh, wow. I think it has to be yeah, respect the mind, and just say it's a free tool, and learn to use it, and just, you'll be amazed at what you can do with it.
Sally Gunnell, thank you so much for agreeing to do the interview. You know, it's a pleasure to meet you. You know, I say you're such a legend. It's unreal. One question I've got is, did you actually beat your toilet roll jumping of 47?
No, do you know, I can't believe how hard that was. I was like gasping. So yes, I haven't seen many people having a little go at the challenge. I think I'll leave it to the sports people. I think the athletes, they're the best ones to do that.
Sally, thank you so much. You take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
No worries. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.